So I'm just going to start a video just to introduce the village of Portmagee to give you kind of a feeling for what it looks like. And as Caroline said there, thanks for the introduction, very long one. It's a fishing village down the southwest coast of Kerry, a very picturesque, beautiful location. A very small population. You're looking at about 100 people in the village, subsequently increased recently, and about 600 in the hinterland, so 600 people in the community. That's the traditional seine boat, which was once a way of fishing going back to the 1600s, all the way up to the 1950s, and still used today as a rowing sport, as you see there yourself, and it's a sport they do. It's also part of the whiskey story that we tell with our brand. And there's the Skellig Islands in the background there, for some context. So as you can see, we're down the very southwest coast of Kerry, and what I'm going to do for the next 15 or so minutes is I'm going to introduce the business, talk about our circular economy for regenerative tourism approach, and we're actually behind where Chris has gone with his business in the B&B in the Burn. So I can kind of give you kind of what the intermediary in steps kind of feel like when you're trying to manage all of these areas that are part of the certification process that they're a gold member of. So we're down here in the southwest coast of Kerry. We're in the very entrance to Portmagee village, and the company is made up of three founders, I guess. There's myself and my brother James, who's the ginger guy on the right, and our business partner Stuart McNamara, who'd be kind of the whiskey aficionado of the group. And we've a long-term plan, long-term vision for our village and what we can do with Portmagee whiskey as a brand. But at the moment, we would describe ourselves as a whiskey tourism business. That's kind of principally what we are. And we're on a voyage, and we want to bring our visitors along with us. So this is what we do when people visit. As I mentioned, of course, we're a whiskey brand, and most people think, oh, big whiskey brand must have been started with lots of money, huge investment and all the rest of it. And as I said, that's not how we did it. We've done it a different approach, and we started with a very small release, a single cask release actually. And what we spent more time on the basis of the brand was creating a brand that was authentic in terms of the story that we're going to tell. And we look at whiskey as the medium in which we tell the story, and that story is the story of Portmagee, the village itself. And our logo is a seine boat, that traditional wooden fishing vessel that you would have seen in the video. Where we are today, we have our planning permission approved to build our own whiskey distillery. We'll call it a micro distillery on site, plus our visitor centre, tea rooms, merchandising shop, a whole visitor centre. But we're doing it piece by piece. And the first part that we did were these two very unique geodesic domes, and they house our visitor centre at the moment. And we got government funding for that through Fáilte Ireland, a backed funding called the New Horizons programme as part of the Skellig Coast in the Wild Atlantic Way. So the Just Transition programme, I'm actually jealous hearing about the different opportunities that are available now in the Midlands. But we took that opportunity when it came to us, and it really helped us. Inside those geodesic domes, the first dome is kind of a smaller dome. It tells the history and story of Portmagee, and we do guided tours in there. And then we bring the visitor into the back where they go into an actual seine boat that we've refurbished, and there's like a 360 immersive cinema experience inside there. And that's very versatile because it's digitally created, so we can change that around. So at Christmas time, that becomes a snow globe for children. In the 4th of May, we're going to have a holiday here, the May Bank holiday weekend. We run a sci-fi film festival that's kind of connected to Star Wars, which were filmed in the Skellig Islands. So for this coming May, that's going to turn into a 360, space battle with Star Wars characters and stuff in space. So hugely versatile, very impressive, very interesting thing that when people visit, they come around and go, wow, that was cool. We're very lucky, of course, down here that we're the gateway to the Skellig Islands, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we're part of a county that's very familiar with tourism and what tourism offering is. So that really helps a lot because everybody around understands what we're trying to do. Um, but it all comes down to, your own ethos and your core values. And we took a bit of time thinking about this at the start, and they kind of reflect how we would feel about it in the Murphy family. And myself and my brother are the fifth generation of the Murphys to grow up in Barrackhill in Portmagee. Our children are the sixth generation. And as mentioned, look, we're planning on something that we're building that the next six generations of the Murphy family can be in Portmagee and contributing meaningfully to our community. So we must have respect for our origins, our traditions, respect for our community, respect for the environment. We have to be loyal. We must be loyal to those traditions. We mustn't just go with the wind, and we must, keep consistency of what the village is about. We have the integrity, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing to do. And those hard things to do come up quite regularly when you run your own business. And by having integrity and sticking with the decisions, and taking the bad with the good, you build up genuine trust amongst your community. Big part of it is the adventure. I love adventures myself. And our village was formed by a smuggler. So Captain Theobald McGee. So adventure is part and parcel of living in the wild Atlantic Ocean here. And community is a huge part. Everything we do has to be fit for our community, and has to be something that the people in Portmagee would be happy with and support. We're not here to take the village's name and then do something, even in an export market where people would be going, what's that about? It must make sense for our community. So part of that is our circular economy for regenerative tourism approach. We're also a Sustainable Tourism Network member. We got our foundation level certification last year, and I'm currently working through all the other criteria. And it is very onerous, especially as a small business. There's a lot of stuff to be done. And as Chris said, if you were a bigger hotel, it's probably easier because you have a green team or something like that can take on all this measurement and policy documents and lots of stuff that you're probably not expecting, but it's all part of it. And when you look at it holistically, and I look at what Chris has achieved there down in the Burn, and it makes sense because what you have then is a very coherent product or experience or accommodation to provide to the guests. We're also a member of Board BIA, which is Origin Green, through the Origin Green program, which is Board BIA's sustainability certification process, which also brings its own challenges, especially as a small business. And we're actually onto our second 5-year program with them. We got certified in 2018 at the beginning of our business journey. And if I look at the plan that we have now for the second from 5 to 10 years, if you want to call it that, compared to the first plan, it's much more reduced, it's much more realistic, it's much more in tune with what we're actually doing. So we started the business with big visions, but then reality meets, and you have to be able to adapt and not to lose focus on what you're trying to achieve, but be realistic about what's actually happening. We're also a supporter of the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan, business supporter of that. And one of the things that we have done is we planted native Irish woodlands. I'll go through that as I go through the certification. So the certification process with Sustainable Tourism Network, it sets out different criteria. Each criteria has several questions you must answer. The questions can be fairly simple ones, or they can be quite detailed, and it really depends. And a lot of it is actually measuring things that you mightn't have measured up until now, and it's forcing you to put systems in place that increase your sustainability, increase your awareness of what you're actually doing to the business and to the environment. So one of the things there is energy and carbon. So as part of that, we installed a small wind turbine. We put it in ourselves. I'm an engineer by background, so I had a few engineer friends. We came up, we put it in, and straight away, I'll admit it. In theory, it seems you could get energy, all the time, but it actually doesn't work down here because it's too windy, it's too turbulent, so it spends most of its time disconnected or turned off because it's not producing. So solar panels would have been a better idea. But part of the process was putting in a battery backup, getting our energy management system, and we have a great understanding. Like on an hourly basis, I can just go into an app now and I see exactly what the energy is. I can tell if somebody's turned on the lights or if the lights are still off in the business, and that's the type of detail that you can get into. Waste and water is another big part, and these are items, it comes down to basics like reduce your what you use. Don't only use everything has value, and what we consider is the impact from extraction as well to disposal and those material choices. So everything about our bottle, the glass can be recycled, the corks are all natural, we've labels, we don't have lots of expensive other bits and pieces or boxes or anything like that at the moment. We've kept the packaging to the minimum required to achieve our aim. We reuse, so for example, our finishes is a special finish in a Barbados rum cask. We use those casks at least twice, if not 3 times, because it still has the effect of the flavor, and it's environmentally unfriendly to be, getting rid of that casks or considering that it's no longer used. You can use it to its max. And Chris was giving great examples of repurposing furniture and stuff, which I fully believe in. And cardboard boxes, containers, everything that we use, if we've got it, we don't destroy it. We don't see them as a throwaway resource. We try and reuse them as much as possible, and then we upcycle items for our own gifts. So that's a bottle there. Seamus is one of our tour guides, and he does craft stuff, and he makes these kind of nice lighting fixtures from the bottles. So we give him the bottles, he makes a lighting fixture, and somebody else gets use, and we get branding. It's a win-win all over the place. We recycled in. By doing all of these, reducing, reusing, we minimize the waste generated on site. But now we have to weigh and monitor it. And up until now, the waste on site was literally something I'd put into my brother's bin. His house is literally beside our facility. But now we've had to, mature, I suppose, the business, and we have a certified waste provider specifically for the business, even though we don't produce that much at the moment. But we know that we will eventually get there where that level of production needs to be measured and weighed. Water. In our planning permission, we're going to drill our own well on site. So I'm looking into that at the moment. So the opposite, I don't want to connect to the local system, because we want very clean water for our distillery, and we don't want it to be chlorinated or fluoride or any of that stuff in it at the start. We want to start with water from the ground and see where we go after that. But, not every step forward, the left hand doesn't talk to right hand in many things. So, we've been given planning permission to drill our own well, but in the same planning permission, we had to connect to a business connection for Irish Water, which we've never even turned on, and we pay a fee on, and we had to pay money to get it installed as a condition of the planning permission. So, sometimes these little things, these inconsistencies can be frustrating, but you just have to be constantly looking at where you're pointing that arrow. And if you're looking at the long-term project, roll with it. Not everything is smooth. Just take the little hits and keep going to where you're trying to get to. One of the big things that we're really proud of down here is what we've done for nature. And we had a small farm. My grandfather, when he passed away, would have had 4 cattle. It's not a functioning farm. It wasn't going to be a business that you could continue on. So what we've done with about half of that farmland, around 8 acres, is we've transformed that into native Irish woodlands. We've planted 5,430 trees there. And our plan there is that, we're not going to see those trees reach maturity, especially the oak trees which we planted, but our great-grandchildren, their children, they'll see those trees in 100, 150 years' time, and they can sustainably fell them, use the timber to make the casks to store the whiskey in, they use the timber to make the traditional boats, and, replant and allow the vegetation and the canopy cover to be managed in a sustainable fashion. In about 20 years' time, I would expect these trees to be at a level where we would have a really nice nature trail walk created through them, connecting our village to the distillery facility and allowing an outdoor education space that the local community school can use as well. And part of that then is our pollinator plan, and one of those, throwaway ideas, but they're nice ideas, and they're always nice to have these things that you feel passionate about, just like, I suppose the water feature that it was in Chris's place there. We want to build this Portmagee pollinator village, so a replica of our village, but designed specifically for the bees, and use that as an educational tool for children. Culture is another huge part of our business. As I mentioned, we feel ourselves like custodians of Portmagee. If we're going to use our village name, we better represent it for what the village actually is. So the seine boat and traditional fishing or traditional rowing sports is very important for us. So we sponsor the local regatta. We get involved. I row myself. We're part of the organising committee, and we've thrown ourselves fully into that. Seine boats as well. We made a submission to the Department of Heritage to get seine boats building, fishing and racing officially recognised as what's called an intangible cultural heritage item of Ireland, and we successfully did that in 2021. So we've put our name forward. We've back to what we're doing. If we're going to use this as our logo in the whiskey, we're damn sure going to put our effort into protecting it for the future generations. And last year we hosted our very first Heritage Week event, National Heritage Week event in August, and it celebrated the same boats. And we had historians talking about the role of women in the traditional fishing business that was there. We had boat builders, both past and present. We had people involved in the rowing, both men and women, all talking about the importance of seine boats to the local culture and heritage of South Kerry. And I suppose another thing then is, people in business. It's another area you have to look at all the legislation, contracts and stuff, but it's also about how you interact with that community. So there's two events that at the moment that we run that are really kind of important to the community. They started off as nothing, but now they're kind of seen as just part of the diary of your average person in Portmagee, and especially for children. So during the May the 4th bank holiday weekend, we run a sci-fi film festival, a Star Wars themed festival. And when I was growing up in a small fishing village in the edge of Ireland, poor area in the 80s and 90s, early 90s anyway, at least, these things seemed impossible. America seemed like a dream. And now we have Americans making films who are traveling from California, coming to our place to showcase their movies, their sci-fi films in our little village. So it's a complete flip around. So all those children that you see dressing up there, like their version of what's possible in the world is completely transformed. And we're helping to do that by just providing facility. It's not the end of the world. We've created something that we know we can give back. And at Christmas time then, you can see the happy family there. We have a Santa's grotto. And like, I never went to Santa as a child because it just didn't exist. No parent down in South Kerry wants to drive an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half to get to some Santa grotto in Killarney or Tralee, an hour and a half up, an hour and a half down with screaming kids. They don't need to know. And in fact, this year, the last couple of years, we've had people traveling down from Dingle. We've had people come from Limerick and Cork coming down to our Santa experience down in Portmagee. So, that's another asset that we're giving back to the community, this wonderful Christmas memories that we can make happen. And it's in our off season. We don't have the tourism footfall. So why not? That's the way we look at it, is do good business that works for the local people as well. And I'll just finish up in this little reflection, and hopefully there'll be some questions at the end of the conversation. But as part of that circular economy for regenerative tourism program that we did it through Munster Technology University, involved 5 different countries, and we did a trip to Iceland, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was great insight because we saw Icelandic tourism, which has increased something like from 500,000 to something like I think it was 5 million. Like it was crazy. It was like a multiplication factor of 10. And they're trying to preserve, a very fragile geo landscape with massive amounts of tourists arriving. And we learned a lot from them. But I took two key takeaways from the Icelandic tourism people. And one of them was the owner of a kind of a hotel out in the middle of nowhere. And he said, the last frontier of luxury is authenticity and honesty. And I really took from that because, 5-star luxury, we know what that is. There's protocols written, fold the toilet paper this way, fold your bed sheets this way. There's all set criteria for that. And, you can get that anywhere in the world now. But can you get something that's authentic? Can you get something that's honest? That's the real gem at this stage. And I think Irish tourism and Irish people in general are quite good at that, and I think we should lean into that more, because the 5-star and the luxury stuff, like, that'll be done all over the world. They can go to your hotels in Southeast Asia or South America or America or Europe, but can you get that warmth? Can you get that authenticity of the experience from people that we can give here in Ireland? I think that's really important to always get across. And then another one, and this came from a farmer, 9th generation family owner, and their farm had evolved from like a grazing farm. And like, this is a farm that survived several famines in Icelandic history. And now it's a really nice business. They have cattle, and they're herding cattle on landscape. We wouldn't even consider putting a sheep, but they're there having a farm. And they produce milk, obviously, but they also produce skyr, which is a kind of a byproduct of the milk production process, and it goes off. And it was something they would have survived during winters before, but now it's their principal product, and they have a business that showcases how they make that. And the family owner said there, he says, our government has policies to support the small and family-run businesses. And I would challenge any Irish government body to say that our policies and things are as equivalent as that. I don't think any small business owner, family business owner would say, oh, it was easy and simple. I'm doing the same documentation that a large multinational business would do to try and get certified in sustainability. And so this is the reality, and I think we need to learn that there has to be different layers and levels. And I'll give an example there, and somebody else raised this already. If you want to join, so we tried to get onto the Fáilte Ireland Climate Action Plan, but to get onto that, the first step there is you need to do an SAI energy audit, and there's grant funding available for that energy audit. But to get onto that grant funding, you must spend at least 10,000 euros on energy use in a year. We don't do that. So we can't get that first step to get onto a program that we actually want to be part of. So these are the kind of inconsistencies that are happening. It's we can cry about them, but we don't. We just keep on going what you can do. And I think Chris said it, take the small bits first, and it just leads on and leads on and leads on. And overall, you'll be doing the right thing. And yeah, I'll leave it there with the final slide. I think it's just, we're on the start of our journey. We're on the start of our voyage. We're bringing the visitors, the tourists that visit us on it. And we're building our idea, our brand, our visitor center. We're building it organically, and we're building it over time. And we just have to have that long-term vision in mind. And when you have that, there's plenty of options. There's always opportunities to leverage into, and there are some fantastic grant schemes, and the Just Transition program I think is an amazing opportunity, particularly in the Midlands there, to be able to be part of as well.